The first thing we're going to talk about for animal handling is cats. So the most important thing that you guys can do when you're handling cats is making sure that you're washing your hands with soap and water in between touching each cat. If they are housed in the same room, such as kitten playroom or community cat, it is okay to interact with all those cats together. They are being housed together. If there are multiple cats in one kennel, you can interact with them freely. However, as soon as you switch kennels or go from one cat to another cat, you do need to make sure you're washing your hands with soap and water. We need to make sure that in our shelter, which is housing hundreds of animals, that we are not transmitting germs. The most fatal germs that we can transmit is panleuk in cats and parvo and distemper in dogs. But other common issues might be upper respiratory infections in cats and kennel cough in dogs. So washing your hands with soap and water in between each pet is going to be the most important thing you can do. If you're interacting with cats, any cats under the age of 6 months are not allowed to touch the floor. If you go into our cat condo area, for instance, you want to make sure that you're either holding them, playing with them in their kennel. Do not let them touch the floor. Again, we don't want to transmit germs, especially to these younger ones, because their immune systems are not strong enough to take any kind of germs. So don't let anybody under 6 months of age touch the floor. Only interact with the cats housed in our adoption areas. These cats, we know that they are healthy. They are also spayed, neutered, and fully vaccinated. So the chance of them spreading germs is much lower than areas such as our stray cat area that has cats that have maybe just come into the shelter. Another big thing to make sure you're doing is paying attention to the name on the cat kennel. So if you take a cat out of its kennel, please double check its name and make sure you return that cat to the same kennel. Again, we do not want to spread germs, so keep it in the same kennel. Always double check the name when you take an animal out of its kennel. So if you guys have already gone through the canine and feline behavior video, then you will have seen this chart already. But for those of you who haven't, this is a really good example of different cat behaviors. So you're going to see various instances of these behaviors when you're handling any of the cats in our adoption area especially. So typically most of our cats are going to be happy. They are going to be relaxed or laying down relaxed. They're going to have their tail up, and a slight curve at the end is a good indication it's not completely straight or wrapped around them. These particular cats will have relaxed expressions, and you can interact with them freely without much of a concern of being scratched or anything like that. If we have a cat that is more worried, typically they'll be hiding in the back of their kennel. If they have a hidey hole in there, they'll be hunkered down in it. They might also be kind of tucked in the back with their body kind of curled into itself, tail wrapped around it. These are indications that the cat's slightly stressed out, a little nervous. They might be a shy cat in general, but typically a happy cat and potentially a nervous or shy cat is what you're going to see in our adoption areas. If we have an angry or very unhappy cat, these are typically our feral cats. So we do not have volunteers interacting with them unless they are releasing them after their spay and neuter surgery for the TNR program. Again, you won't be hands-on with them. It's simply opening their trap and releasing them back to their area. But typically you will not see these angry behaviors in our adoption area. We do have cats in our stray area that may potentially, be hissing or have their hair raised when they first come in until they get comfortable with us. It is a stressful environment for them. They don't understand what's happening. So those are more common on cats that have just come in our stray area, or definitely our feral cats that we keep in the back. But when you guys are handling cats, you should feel pretty comfortable. They'll be rubbing up against the kennel door typically when you come in to visit them. Worst case scenario, they're kind of laying in the back because they're shy. You can still interact with these cats. These worried cats or shy cats, just make sure you're going a little bit slower with them. And going slow with any of the animals is generally a good idea anyways, because you never know whether there's something particular about you that makes them a little bit more nervous or shy to begin with. So in our cat area, these are going to be pretty common things to see, so you will know that yes, they are comfortable around people, and we definitely want to make sure that during your volunteering, you are continuing to socialize with the cats and keeping them happy and relaxed in this shelter until they get adopted. So when you guys are volunteering, some of the areas that you can spend time with cats is going to be the community cat room and kitten playroom. Those are going to be the rooms up in the front by the front desk that are encased in glass. So typically in our community cat room, we will house adult cats that are socialized with other cats, and just to give them a little bit more room to interact and to run around. Our kitten playroom is primarily going to be our younger cats under a year, again, to make sure they stay socialized and they have more room than they would if they were housed in a smaller kennel in the other areas of the shelter. If you are interacting with cats in Cat Condo, you can go ahead and just close the door on that room to interact with the cats in there. You can take one cat out of the kennel at a time. It can run around the room, you can play with it, things like that. Just make sure that you return it to the correct kennel after you're done playing with it. And of course, with all of these, you want to make sure you're washing your hands with soap and water in between each cat. If we have any cats housed in the hallway because of overflow and not enough kennels or areas in the room, you can take these cats out. You can hold them, you can play with them in their kennels in the hallway, but if you want to let them out to run around, you can take them into our visitors room. This is going to be where potential adopters can interact with dogs or cats that they're interested in, but if there is nobody in there using that room, you guys can definitely take any cats from the hallway kennels into that room to be able to let them spread their legs a little bit and have more room for play. Again, make sure you wash your hands, soap and water in between each one, and if you do go into the back area to collect toys for the cats, make sure whatever toy you're playing with the cat with gets put in its kennel after you're done. So don't necessarily use the same toy when playing with all the cats. Just go ahead and grab a new one with each cat and then let the cat keep it in its kennel after you guys are done socializing. So when you guys come in to socialize with the cats, there's going to be quite a few things you guys can do with them in order to keep them socialized. Most importantly, you're going to give them lots of love. You want to treat these cats just like you would treat your pet at home. Give them lots of love, talking softly to them. Definitely spend a lot of time playing with them, especially the younger ones. Some of the older ones might just want to cuddle on your lap. But if they like to play with them as much as they'll allow you to. You can hold them, definitely make sure that they're comfortable, interacting with people and being held, and, sitting on the couch if you're in the visitors room, things like that. You want to make sure that you're allowing them to express their normal feline behavior. So again, offering them toys and enrichment that allows them to, hunting, scratching, things like that. They really enjoy expressing their natural behaviors, and this keeps them mentally healthy while they're in the shelter. Another thing that the cats really love is being brushed. So we do have brushes in the grooming room. You guys can brush them while you're hanging out with them. If it's a smaller cat that's under 6 months of age and isn't allowed to come out of their kennel and be on the floor, you can hold them and everything. You can play with them in their kennel, but these are really good ones to brush too, because we want them to get used to grooming so that when their potential adopter takes them home, if they want to brush them and things like that, they'll be able to, without the cat not knowing what's happening and being concerned with being brushed. It also makes them look really nice, so that they are um, more appealing to potential adopters. So definitely give them lots of love. Treat them as if they were your own house cat. Moving on to dog handling now. Just like with the cats, we also have different handling rules with the dogs. So with dogs, you can use hand sanitizer in between touching each dog. I do have multiple bottles of hand sanitizer in my office that you can put in your pocket and take around with you while you're interacting with the dogs. If the dog is under 6 months of age, they are not allowed to come out of their kennel. So you can interact with them in their kennel, spend time with them playing, hold them, whatever. Or you can carry them out to the front area where our puppy play area is. Um, if you are taking dogs out, you need to pay attention to kennel cards. For starters, you want to make sure that you are looking at the dog's name before you take it out of the kennel. So that when you return that pet, you are returning it to its correct kennel. Any dogs housed in the adoption area are fine to take out, with the exception of the 6 months and under. And if you venture into the small dog room or stray dog area, they have to have a big green sticker on their kennel card. That is going to mean that their behavior is good. They are fully vaccinated. Okay, so we want to make sure they have a green sticker if they are in other areas aside from the adoption area. Before you ever enter a kennel, you want to make sure you kind of kneel down in front of the kennel. Let the dog smell your hand, palm up. It's the most gentlest way to introduce yourself to the dog. It's the least threatening for the dog. So you want to be very calm, kneel down, palm up, and talking to them softly, just so they can, be introduced to you and be comfortable with you. If at any point you don't feel comfortable with the dog, if it's reacting negatively towards you, um, whale eyes, or if it's growling or something, if it moves to the back of the kennel and seems to shy away from you, just move on to the next dog. It could be something about you, such as you're wearing a hat. Maybe you are a male and the dog is more comfortable around females, things like that. Just move on to the next dog. We have plenty of dogs that need interaction. And if a dog maybe isn't as comfortable with you, they could potentially be comfortable with everybody else. You never know what experiences they've had in the past and what makes them nervous and what doesn't. So don't worry if you have a particular dog that you're not able to specifically take out, or that you don't feel comfortable with, because somebody else will be fine with that dog and be able to take them for a walk. If you are volunteering with children, please do not allow the children to remove the dogs from the kennel, especially in the mornings. Maybe they haven't been out on a walk for the day yet. They are going to want out as soon as they see you reaching for that kennel latch. I am much more comfortable with the adult entering the kennel, getting the dog out, and then after the dog has been outside, gone to the bathroom, calmed down a bit, then you can pass the leash off to your child if you feel that they are going to be capable of holding on to that leash and not letting the dog get loose. When you guys are working with the dogs, one of the most important things you guys can do with them is help them learn different manners and things like that, so that when a potential adopter comes in, they are seeing dogs that are more well behaved. The last thing an adopter wants is to walk into an adoption dog area and have dogs jumping on the kennel door barking in their face. If they see a dog behaving like that, they are just going to keep on walking down the line to find a dog that doesn't. So some of the things we can do while they're in our care is help them be calmer and learn different commands that will allow them to get adopted much quicker. So we need to make sure we are promoting appropriate behavior and redirecting unwanted behavior. If we have a dog that likes to jump on us, we are going to do what we can to teach this dog to keep 4 on the floor, okay, all 4 paws on the floor. Anytime they are displaying good behavior, we want to make sure we are reinforcing those behaviors. So carrying around a treat bag with you is a great idea when you are socializing with the dogs. Anytime they do something good, if you tell them to sit and they sit on command, give them a treat. Even if it's just a handful of dog food in a pouch that you carry around, most of these dogs are very food motivated, so it is a great way to get them to learn new commands in a very short time. In my office, I also have clickers, so if you're familiar with clicker training, which is simply clicking every time the dog does the behavior that you want, you can take one of those, take it around with you as well. Also, having that contact, that eye contact with the dog, making them understand that they are the dog and you are the person in control of them, okay? Not in an aggressive manner, but just from an obedience standpoint, okay? So making sure anytime negative behavior, we are completely ignoring that pet. For instance, if you go to enter a dog kennel and they are jumping on the door, you're going to keep that door latched and you're not going to go in there. You're going to wait for them to sit quietly or be on all 4 paws quietly before you enter that kennel. Once they are doing this, go ahead and give them a treat. If you're carrying a clicker, click as soon as they are sitting quietly or 4 on the floor quietly, and then you can enter the kennel. Once in the kennel, you can do it again by, again, making them sit down or making them have 4 on the floor quietly, but do not leash them up and allow them to come out of the kennel if they are jumping all over and not displaying good manners, because when you do that, you are reinforcing bad behavior. You are showing them that, yes, you can jump on me, you can bark and be crazy, and you will still be rewarded with exiting the kennel and going for a walk. So we are only reinforcing good behavior. They have to use their manners if they are going to come out for a walk or receive a treat. So coming back a little bit to dog behavior, these are going to be some of the behaviors you will see when interacting with the dogs. Yawning doesn't necessarily mean that they're tired. It is a calming mechanism for them, as well as lip licking and things like that. Turning away from you, sniffing the ground, play bowing whenever they are can see another dog, but they're a playful dog, so they will play bow, which is where they crouch on their front legs and have their back legs up still. Freezing might be for dogs that are a little more reactive to other dogs. Of course, sitting and walking in a curve. They'll kind of walk a little bit, keep a little bit of space between them and you. These are just calming behaviors that they're going to be displaying, especially if it's the first time you've ever interacted with them and they're not familiar with you. So not necessarily anything to be concerned with behavior-wise, but they are pretty common behaviors, and if you pay attention to the dog while you're interacting with them, you'll start to see these behaviors and they'll become more familiar to you when interacting with the dogs. So when it comes to interacting with dogs and even cats, it's also going to be important that you're paying attention to your own body language. So you're going to be modeling the behavior you want. You want to be the one that is the dominant source. You do not want the dog to be dominant and think that it can do whatever it wants and that it's going to tell you where you're going to walk and how fast you're going to walk, things like that. So definitely model the behavior you want. You want to be confident when you are walking these dogs and let them know who is in control. Another thing, you want to establish and communicate clear boundaries. You have to stop them in any bad behaviors, whether it is barking at other dogs while you're walking them, jumping all over you, pulling on the leash. You need to tell them not to pull. You need to tell them not to bark. You need to tell them that they're not allowed to jump on you. And Granted, you're not necessarily just going to say complete sentences of don't do this, don't do that, but you are going to stop entirely when they start pulling on the leash. You're going to stop walking them, you're going to stand there until they calm down, and then you can proceed. And every time they start pulling again, you stop. You cannot allow them to behave in an unruly manner and get the idea in their heads that they are the ones that are in control. While you're interacting with them, you need to be present. Don't be distracted by your phone or other things. You need to be focused on the dog, and you need to make sure that you are reinforcing positive behaviors and redirecting negative ones. As far as speaking their language, if you notice that they're nervous, you can be calmer as well. Go slower with them. If you see that they want to play, go ahead and play with them. You know, a lot of our dogs like playing fetch. A lot of them like playing in the pool. Take them into those dog runs and spend time with them in there as well. Play is not a negative behavior whatsoever unless we're talking about dogs that play bite and things like that. That is a behavior that needs to be redirected. But definitely have fun with these animals, but you are in control, so make sure you're maintaining that confidence when you're with them. While it may seem that when you are getting a dog in and out of their kennel that it is a simple task, that's not always the case. So these particular dogs may have been in the shelter a while. They might be very active dogs, things like that. And these potential personalities can sometimes make it difficult getting them out of the kennel without trying to take off before you're ready to, and also going back in. Maybe they're going to be a little bit hesitant about returning back to the kennel. So when you are approaching their kennel, it's really important that you're watching your body language. Be confident, but also relaxed. You know, don't be tense when you're going into the dogs. Avoid direct eye contact. Sometimes that's kind of considered a negative factor towards the dogs. It might invoke fear or make them nervous. So, you know, just be calm in general. Imagine how you would like someone to approach you, calmly, friendly, and that's how you're going to approach our dogs. When you do go into the kennel, you know, before you even open that door, you want to make sure that they are sitting quietly. If they're a particular dog, especially some of the younger ones that do not know how to sit on command, just making sure that they have 4 on the floor and are being quiet. Ultimately, we want our dogs to be quiet in their kennel when someone is approaching. We don't want them barking at the kennel door. We don't want them jumping all over it. They have to mind their manners if they want you to come into the kennel and take them out for a walk. Whenever they're doing those negative behaviors, you can stop, you can turn your back to them. They will stop jumping and acting crazy, and they'll stand there quietly with 4 on the floor at the very least, because they're kind of wondering, what are you doing? Why did you turn your back to me? Once they're standing quietly, you can go ahead and turn around and try again. But definitely make sure that they are being calm and minding their manners before you go into the kennel. Just as a reminder too, before you enter a kennel, you want to make sure you're reading those kennel signs. Check for any signs that might say the dog has some kind of an illness like coccidia, or maybe they have a behavior note on there. You want to check for those things before you enter the kennel. Also making sure that the dog is over 6 months of age if you're going to take it on a walk. So under 6 months of age, you have to interact with it in the kennel or in the puppy area that you will carry it to. Also, very important, make sure you are looking for green stickers on those, as well as knowing the dog's name before you take it out of the kennel. All the kennels will look the same to you guys if you're not familiar with the kennels specifically, so you need to make sure you know the name so that you get the dog back into its correct kennel when you're done walking. Because most of these dogs don't come into the shelter wearing a collar, it is going to be a lot easier for us and more cost effective to use slip leads. So these particular leashes are going to have a handle at one end and a metal loop at the other end. To create a slip lead, you are going to put the handle through the loop, and that is going to create your slip lead, and you can slip it around their head, and it is a one size fits all. It'll work for every single dog. It's also going to allow you to have more control over the dog when you are handling them and taking them on walks. So after you've approached the kennel, you know that the dog is comfortable with you, you've created your slip leash, and you are ready to enter the kennel and take that dog for a walk. You always want to make sure that you are opening the kennel door inward and keeping your body in between the kennel door and the kennel wall. This is going to prevent the dog from being able to slip through and get loose. We do keep the bay doors open in the adoption dog areas as well as the stray dog areas to let some of that fresh air in. So if they get loose, they will be able to get out of the kenneled areas. So definitely make sure you are keeping your body in between the door and the wall to reduce the dog slipping out before you're ready. And then as soon as you get into the kennel, you want to make sure that you do latch the kennel door before you start to leash up your dog. Once you've gone into the kennel and you have latched the gate, you want to make sure that that dog is sitting quietly if it knows that command, or at least has 4 on the floor and is being quiet before you leash them up. Anytime this dog starts to get jumpy, you're taking the leash away, because we are teaching them to have manners and they have to be patient before they get to go on a walk. Try not to hover over the dog. Sometimes it appears threatening to them. It'll make them a little nervous. But just stand there quietly until they start behaving, and then you can leash them up. Before you go to open the kennel door, you want to make sure you slip your wrist through the handle on the slip lead and then hold on to it with your hand. Never ever ever wrap the leash around your hand. If the dog is very active or a very large dog, 60, 70 pounds, if you open that kennel door and they decide to take off, it can really hurt your hand if you have it wrapped around. So make sure you just have your wrist through the handle and you're holding onto the leash with your hand. If the dog you're walking doesn't have the best manners, as soon as you reach for the gate handle to open it, they're probably going to start to jump and get overexcited as you go to open that. So make sure, again, we're sitting or 4 on the floor quietly before you open that kennel door. Okay, so anytime you reach for that gate handle, if they start jumping, you're going to pause until their behavior is positive, and then you can continue out. Anytime bad behavior is shown, you have to redirect it, or else they're going to start associating bad behaviors with good things like going on a walk, getting out of their kennel, things like that. So make sure you're reinforcing these positive behaviors. And then as you're walking out of the kenneled areas with your dog, you want to make sure that you're walking the dog along the wall and away from the other kennel doors. Not only is it going to spread germs if they get close to another dog, but it's also going to stress out the other dogs that are in their kennel. They're going to start barking because they want out too. So it can be really stressful environment for them already. So when you add another dog being walked in front of their kennel, it just increases the amount of stress in the area. So keep them as far away from the other kennel doors as possible when exiting the adoption dog or stray dog areas. A big rule that we have at our shelter is that while you guys are walking dogs, even if you're walking a dog and you're volunteering with a friend or family member and they're walking a dog also, at no point during that walk are those dogs allowed to be able to touch each other. If they can touch noses, they are already way too close. All dogs have to be separated at all times. If we are initiating a play group or a meet and greet between two pets, a staff member has to be present. Those are going to be instances where a staff member is the one to initiate those meets. Never under any circumstances are two volunteers or multiple volunteers allowed to walk dogs together. They have to remain separated, and this is for the safety of the dogs as well as the volunteers, staff members, guests. We need to make sure that there is no chance of a potential dog fight. Before these pets are brought to us, we have absolutely no history of how they react to other pets, and we do not want to find out that they react negatively between two volunteers. So keep those dogs separated at all times. It will be staff members that try and determine whether these guys are reactive or whether they can play freely with other dogs. While on your walk, don't leave the property. It is okay for you guys to walk the dog down to the gate and back, but please do not leave the property. This is just for, again, the safety of the pets as well as you. If it's an event or something like that, obviously that is an exception, but just on any given day while walking dogs, please stay on the property. And also, especially, during summer when we have really high temps, avoid the paved areas as much as possible. You can take them into dog runs, which are grass. You can take them through the field, down through the trees. That's all a dirt path, so that's going to be a lot safer for their paws than walking across the parking lot or walking on the road to the gate. If you go out to the gate, make sure you stay in the grassy area to the left of the road. Also, feel free to limit those walking times. The dog is not going to be upset if it gets a shorter walk during higher temperatures. Usually a shorter walk in high temps is just as effective as a longer walk when it's cooler out. They get tired much quicker, and dehydration could become an issue as well as heat exhaustion. So limit the walking times and avoid paved areas during high temps. The areas that you guys are going to be able to interact with the dogs outside of the kennels is going to be anywhere on the property that is to the sides of the building or in front of the building. We don't allow volunteers behind the shelter area in that backfield. You guys can walk down to the gate and back. You guys can go on the walking trail through the trees. And of course, you can play in any of the dog runs that are to the side of the adoption dog area or on the other side by the stray dog area. If you do go into the dog runs, make sure that you are checking the list of fence jumpers before you let them off leash in a dog run. Also, make sure you are latching the gate on the dog run before you let the dog off leash. We want to make sure that everybody is safe while they're being walked and that nobody has the potential of getting loose and having to be chased. Returning the dog to its kennel is going to be very similar to how you took it out. You want to make sure you're walking the dog as far away from the other kennel doors as possible. You're making sure that you return it to the correct kennel because you have seen its name once you took it out, and you are returning it to the correct kennel by checking the name again before you put the dog in. After you walk the dog, I always recommend that you remain in the kennel for a minute or two. Give them some treats, let them get some fresh water, just interact with them for a couple minutes or so, just so they know that it's the end of the walk. They are not being punished. They didn't do anything bad on their walk, and this isn't something negative. It's simply time for them to go back to their own space, and you can still interact with them for another minute or so while they calm down from that walk. Also, make sure, if they are out of water, if they do drink all the water as soon as they get back in the kennel, please refill that for them so that they always have fresh water to drink while they're in there. And make sure you move the clothespin on their enrichment tag to the next number. We want to make sure that everybody has their accurate recordings of walks so that other people who come in after you know who's been walked, who needs to be walked, and things like that. And then after you are completely done walking all the dogs, make sure you return the leash to the front desk area. This is going to be to ensure that guests don't come in and see a leash in the basket on the kennel and automatically assume that they can take the dog out for a walk. They are not trained in which dogs are allowed to come out, so we don't want them to take out someone who is on a stray hold or who may be ill or have behavior issues. We want to keep them safe as well. So always return your leash back to the front desk area after you've completed your walks. So teaching the dogs manners, one of the easiest things you can teach a dog how to do is to sit. So the first thing you're going to do, obviously you want to ask them to sit. Some of these dogs are already going to be trained and have a few commands that they know, but most of them do know sit. If not, all you need to do is hold your treat up. If you put your treat up and they're not automatically sitting, moving it towards their head, over their head, forces them to put their head back, and because they're putting their head back, they automatically sit. As soon as they sit, you can hand them the treat. What we most commonly say in the shelter is good sit. I even use it with my dogs here at home. So, as soon as they sit down, you're treating, good sit, good sit. The more times you do that, it clicks with them very quickly. And then eventually, they will get to the point that even if you just put your hand up and you're not even holding a treat, as soon as you say sit with your hand up like this, they automatically know sit. And you can simply pet them and say good sit. And they're going to learn so quickly. It often surprises you how quickly they can learn this command. But that's why having treats with you as you're interacting with the dogs is going to be a really helpful tool for you. Teaching them how to sit is going to allow them to be on their best behavior when potential adopters walk through those doors. One thing that we like to do is, start at one end of the kennels, go to each and every dog, sit. When they sit, treat them, and keep doing that. Some of the dogs, like I said, especially, maybe our 6-7 month-old puppies, they might not know how to sit, but we can get them to that point. It's difficult to do outside of the kennel door because you can't move that treat over their head to get them to back up and sit down. But you can make a mental list, or you can pause and just go into that kennel to get them to sit, using that technique, and they will eventually get it. But by doing this, when they see someone come into the kennels, even an adopter, they're automatically going to start sitting quietly when people enter that kenneled area, because the first thing they're going to think is they are coming in and we're going to get a treat if we sit down. So if everyone is doing that, if all volunteers are going through, asking every single dog, going down the line, asking every single one to sit and treating them, it becomes a very quick learned command. And then that way, even staff members are going to be doing this. So it gets to that point, anybody who walks through that door into adoption dog area especially, they're sitting down quietly automatically as soon as that door opens. Now, one thing about the treats, if you have a lot of people coming in that day, you do not want a dog to have 30 treats in one day. So this is where dog food is a great training tool, especially if the dogs, aren't getting fed until the afternoon. They will be very motivated. Even with one piece of dog food, they will be motivated to sit. They are, very simple in their joys. So taking around, a pouch full of dog food or a little bag full of dog food and just giving them one kibble every time they sit is just going to be as effective as, giving them a bone or some other kind of fancier high-calorie treat. So even just a dog food piece is more than enough to get these guys to learn how to sit and be quiet when people enter the kenneled areas. Now that we're finishing up with the animal handling portion, one thing that is required by law is if at any point you are bit by a dog or a cat while visiting the shelter, you have to report it. An animal control officer will come in and do a bite report with you. They may need to take photos of the bite. It does not mean that the animal is going to be euthanized, okay? So please don't not report it because you think that they will automatically be euthanized. That is very rarely the case. When it comes to volunteers, I've only seen a few having been bitten in the past, and every single one of those bites was from play. So one particular one was a volunteer playing with a puppy. They were playing tug-of-war with a toy, and when the puppy went to readjust and, you know, relatch on to get a better grip on the toy, it did get their finger. It was not a severe bite by any means. It was through play. It wasn't aggressive in any manner, but it happened. It broke skin, and the puppy was quarantined for 10 days. It is just to make sure that there is nothing transmittable to you through the bite, such as rabies. If you are interacting with our pets on adoption side, these pets have been vaccinated for rabies already, but it is the state law that if a bite happens and breaks skin, it does have to be reported. So, you know, please report it just for safety and you know, to make sure that we can get you cleaned up and everything to minimize the risk of infection even, okay? Please don't feel that you shouldn't report it because you're worried about them to be euthanized. It's not going to happen. I mean, it would have to be a severe aggression issue for that to happen. So please report those. Also, as you're going around interacting with different pets, if you see any signs of illness, please let us know. Okay, so you know we're big on germs. You know that we do whatever we can to keep germs from being spread to other pets in the shelter. So if you see any eye or nose discharge, any coughing or wheezing, any lethargy, if the pet seems really fatigued, let us know immediately so that we can monitor that and get the medications if needed, okay? Thank you guys all for attending this video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. My email address will be on the following slide. Otherwise, have a great day, and let me know if you ever have any questions regarding animal handling, and we'll help you out.